So welcome everyone to our webinar with the amazing Kathryn Dixon with financial wellbeing for employees, why it matters and how to do it right. So I want to start with acknowledgement of country. I live in the Whadjuk land of the Noongar Nation. And I just wanted to pay our respects to our Indigenous elders who are past, present and emerging. And we do love to celebrate all of our Indigenous sisters in business. My name is Leanne Jeffrey. So what you're going to see on the screen is probably a slightly different version of me to what you see here. I am the coordinator for Business Women Australia. So if you do have any questions about Business Women Australia, please reach out. I'm always up for a virtual chat and happy to answer any questions. And part of Business Women Australia is our vision to really bring in our amazing leaders to show their value and help contribute to the greater good. And we want to be obviously the #1 collaborative community in Australia, but we want to actually share our vision by helping everyone to achieve their goals and dreams and really build that network of influence and create beautiful opportunities for business women in Australia. And we have a massive collective across Australia with owners, entrepreneurs, directors, executives, professionals, consultants, our C-suite women on boards, and our leaders and emerging leaders. And we have our 5 areas of development. So leadership, business improvement, personal growth, influence and profile, and of course, connecting. And we do try to include everybody. We like to have a nice, inclusive and diverse workplace. And we do encourage everyone to bring forward with honesty, courage, and we love a good collaboration. So please join along and follow along. Here is our social media. We have a great LinkedIn group, which is about 8,000 strong, and it does comprise solely of women in Australia. So we're quite exclusive with that group, and we do invite all women to come and join us. And of course, there's great member benefits. We're working to really create connections and friendships. Obviously, discounted events for our members, a directory listing. We love knowledge sharing and development, and we're creating online, in-person roundtables, masterminds. We've got courses available as social events, and we love, like I said, we love a good collaboration. If you have any questions as a member, please reach out. I do work with all of our members, and we do have the 2 levels of membership available. And this is the bread and butter for BWA. So if you are considering joining, please reach out. And our upcoming events. So like I said, we've had events across Australia. On the 3rd of November, we have a masterclass for high performing and sustainable teams with Jodie Cottle. We do have a current podcast out with Jodie that's given a brief overview on how to create a high performing and sustainable team. On the 10th of November, we're talking with Tracy Cooper from Sea Change Consulting with ageism. And she has a special guest, Patricia from COTA, and they're going to be talking why ageism hurts us all. And that goes from going young into the workforce and to people who are getting ready to retire out. 14th of November has a podcast, The Dark Story Behind Codeless Tech with Erin Clark. She is a gun. She's actually launched an app from concept to launch. It was 30 days and it was all involved codeless tech. And we followed that by a webinar with the Dr. Sasha Fulton on understanding women's health. Melbourne has an end of year long lunch with Jessica Schubert. And I'm pretty sure, Kathryn, you might be there as well. And Perth, fantastic. And Perth, we have an end of year celebration with stories, bubbles, and burlesque. And now I'll leave you in the very amazing hands of Kathryn Dixon. So Kathryn, she believes in creating and building meaningful relationships. That is the key to business success, no matter the industry. with a career spanning over 20 years in the financial service sector in customer-centric roles that have challenged and strengthened her people skills, she can confidently facilitate all stages of relationship development, growth, and maintenance. So over to you, Kathryn.
Right. Well, thank you, Leanne, stepping in for Lynn on the Nullarbor. I'm going to actually take my put my camera off because I get very distracted, and you'll get a much better conversation from me if I am not glancing back at myself. But before I do that, I'll just explain who I am and where I work for. So, as Leanne said, I'm a relationship manager with Insignia Financial. So Insignia Financial is one of the largest financial services organisations in Australia. We've got about 5,000 staff across the country. And our ambition as a company is to bring financial well-being to all Australians. Now, depending on what part of the business you work in, you can be doing something quite different. So I work with employers. I work with employers in the corporate superannuation space, in group insurance, and now in financial well-being, where we have brought a financial well-being offer to employers with whom we don't already have an existing relationship. So today, what I'm going to talk about is some of the trends and influences that are shaping our employment market. Things that we're responding to employee expectations about. Talk about financial well-being as being key to employee well-being, and then look at some of the benefits as well. Now, let me just share my screen. So, there's our title, Uplifting Employee Engagement Through Financial Wellbeing. So one of the things that we're aware of is that employers really are struggling to retain and top talent. They are more than half of the Australian workforce is open to moving roles. Employee wellbeing is now really important. It's at the top of the agenda for senior leaders. COVID-19 really changed employee expectations, and it impacted the workforces. So employees now really are more willing than ever to leave for new opportunities, and companies are really struggling to retain their top talent. There was a recent survey, and on the screen you'll see some numbers. So I'm going to take you through some numbers, and then before we get there. So since COVID, a majority of CEOs have actually ranked labour and skills shortages as being the #1 external issue that they expected to influence or disrupt business strategy during 2023. And Deloitte study there, a global study, showed that more than 40% of workers were considering leaving their jobs. Now in Australia, that figure from a survey last year, again a Deloitte survey, said that 64% of workers in Australia were open to looking for a new job in the next year, so 2023. And 57% of them were considering quitting their job for one that supported their well-being. Now, again, COVID's brought those changes where we think, we've been forced to think about what is important to us as individuals, as families, and what we want out of our careers. And that's all contributing to the difficulty that employers are having in both hiring and retaining top talent. Employees are now looking for the what else. Oops, that's not moving on. There it is. So it really is time to adapt. What's emerged from the pandemic is, there's been that increase in competition, as I said. We've got a rapidly changing market. We've got employees who are, they're less engaged. There's been the emergence of silent resignations. We've seen the quiet quitting. We've also seen retiring at work, where people are uncertain about whether they can actually afford to retire and what retirement might look like after that. The increase in hybrid and flexible work arrangements has also, continues to be an issue for employers. And certainly the younger generation is requiring flexibility or perhaps more ability to work from home when they're considering a role to take on. There's also been some increase in demand for talent in particular sectors. But what is really important is that number on the right-hand side of the screen. 44% of employees have felt mentally checked out of their jobs. Now, that was a MetLife Australia survey. It was conducted, it's conducted every couple of years, and that was 1,023 full-time and part-time employees. Now, that was across, it was a representative sample. It was across age, gender, industry, geography, and company size. Now, in addition to those changing markets, we've also got the current economic environment, which is also adding a lot more uncertainty for workers. So I guess what I'm saying is that employee care and well-being really does matter more than anything at all. We can't help but see every time we look on the TV, we're seeing the unemployment rate being reported as 3.6%. So that stayed pretty stable this year. So again, really difficult to get that retention and recruitment in place. I said on the previous slide, 64% of Australians were planning to leave their organisation in 2022. One thing that that MetLife survey I mentioned to you also illustrated is that employees who have a better workplace belonging, so they feel that they're valued by their workplace, they feel that they're engaged in their workplace, they feel interested and important, if you like, take 75% fewer sick days. So, productivity becomes a better issue there. And then 1 in 3 employers surveyed in 2022 claimed their retention rate was less than 60% over that past 12 months. So that number is even worse for organisations who have more than 500 employees. So if we look at things, we talk about being in control of your finances, and I've jumped ahead of slides, sorry guys. Being in control of your finances and having a sense of security is really important. It's an underlying foundation of health and well-being. So between 2020 and 2022, there was another survey. This was a MetLife Australia survey, top right-hand side of the screen. Now, this was a survey that people assessed for themselves. They assessed themselves on a 7-point scale of how they felt their financial health was. So the bottom end of the spectrum was not healthy, the upper end was healthy. So the number that described their financial health as being not healthy, so under 3 or less on that scale, increased in that period of time by 7 or 8%. It showed also that 57% of employees were thinking about finding a job that supported their well-being better. And the other interesting part is that 48% of employees cited financial concerns as being the cause of their lower mental health. So that in itself means, that's some of the impacts that poor financial health can create. And that particular statistic was a United States survey of nearly 3,000 full-time employees. So again, there's some fairly big numbers in this, some fairly telling statistics. If we look at what we consider financial well-being to be, and you've probably heard different variations of this explained to people by different people, we view that as being in control of your finances and having a sense of security that you can meet your financial needs. And that's simply an underlying foundation of overall health and well-being. So often we see organisations where they have a well-being program, but they've perhaps missed out the financial element, or they've relied upon the superannuation funds that prior to the last couple of years were a default type super fund coming in and providing that education. As we now have super funds that are attached to you for life, that particular thing has stopped. And so there's been a reduction in the access to education there. So now's an awesome time for employers to look at providing the resources and support that they can to build financial wellness. So that's given you a snapshot of some of the reasons that you might look at it. The financial knowledge and literacy of your workforce can be increased and improved through financial knowledge and education. And employers do have a role to play in that. It's fair to say that investing in employee financial well-being, it comes at a cost, but it's really a bit of a non-negotiable. So this Deloitte comment of 88% of employers think it's important for them to demonstrate care towards their employees. Now that was not the Deloitte study, that was a US MetLife study. But what was really interesting is, in Australia, 83% of Australian employers say they have a responsibility for the health and well-being of their employees. But the even more interesting part of that is that 82% of Australian employees think that their employers have a responsibility to care for their workforce. It is all about trying to get the alignment, though. I saw a survey the other day which talked about employers feeling that what was important in a workplace was the diversity and inclusion policies and procedures that were in place. What employees were talking about was actually financial access to financial education and information. So poor mental health of employees has impacted the employer's costs, and it's estimated that the total cost of absenteeism, presenteeism and turnover has increased by about 25% since 2019. Now, what that is it's resulting in a less productive, less engaged workforce. And the cost of stress related to presenteeism and sickness in Australia was estimated at $66.8 billion this year. And that's just a huge amount of money. Now, the way that's estimated is based on the average of the days lost through sickness and multiplied by the average Australian hourly rate. And there's this 40%, 40% of total turnover costs that are assessed as being attributable to mental health issues. And the people that are talking about that are saying their key issue is financial concerns are causing them or leading to some of those issues. So, financial well-being equals employer well-being equals a better relationship with the employer. I guess it's just too expensive to ignore financial well-being as being part of your employee retention strategy. And it's also been shown that financial education does improve the bottom line outcomes for an organisation. It can reduce financial stress, which can lead to improved emotional well-being of employees and a better relationship with the employers, which of course then leads on to that greater loyalty, greater presenteeism, better productivity. The relationship that an employee has with their employer is important in building trust and loyalty, and it contributes to the sense of belonging that an employee feels. So put simply, as that screen shows you, financial well-being equals emotional well-being equals a better relationship with the employer. So why would you as an employer, or perhaps you as a COI who's working with employers, perhaps talk about why would you push a financial wellbeing program into a business? Well, there's some really positive impacts of investing in a financial wellbeing program. The study here again, a MetLife one, just showed that 92% of people were more likely to feel engaged at work. 65% were likely to be more likely to be loyal, and 56% were more likely to be productive at work. So those are all upsides to an employer. And employers that can effectively demonstrate care, it does help with the feelings of financial wellness, and it ultimately also realises better talent management outcomes. So for us, when we think about an employee wellbeing program at Insignia, this is the sort of thing that we think people and employers should be thinking about. We're looking through the lens of behavioural science and psychology. And there's 3 key areas that we think, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a second. The first one is being intentional, being conscious and aware of our relationships with money and spending patterns. Being informed, so improving literacy and education to drive better outcomes. And the third thing is then ensuring that people that take part in a program are able to take steps that enable them to manage and maintain their own financial goals. So if we look at the first one of those, the first step is simply building awareness of our own behaviours, so that as individuals, we start being more intentional. So financial wellness really does start with empowering people to be more mindful with money and being equipped with skills to both observe and understand their financial behaviours. And that gives them the tools to move and make some positive changes. So the first step is really being deliberate, and it's encouraging people to shift from a passive position of just accepting things the way they are to being conscious and aware and making intentional decisions. So really thinking about it. The second part is reviewing the current state, and an important part of being intentional is to first review the current situation and current circumstances that an individual's in, so that they understand their situation, their money personality type, their beliefs and the attitudes that they have towards money, their spending patterns, their biases, and any mindsets or other behaviours that might prevent them from reaching their goals. And then the third part of being intentional is really to acknowledge, we all have subconscious behaviours and patterns. So they can be broken and replaced with more positive behaviours that can help an individual reach their financial goals. And simply by slowing down and being intentional about what an individual is doing, they can train their fast system to new, healthier patterns of behaviour. And that'll help them get in the right mindset to control and improve both their financial situation on a day-to-day basis or a longer-term basis, and their long-term financial well-being. The second strategy and part of what we think belongs in a financial wellbeing program is being informed. There is a real misconception that financial education and advice is only for people that have got lots of money. And that can really be a huge barrier for people who think they either don't need it, can't afford it, or in some cases feel, well, I just don't have enough money. I don't deserve it, for want of a better word. So our view is that almost anybody can benefit from financial education, because it educates them on building good behaviours and to setting goals. And each of those is highly individual. So because people do find financial concepts and information overwhelming, it's important to deliver financial literacy content in a really accessible, easy to digest way. So there we've got, avoiding regrets. 7% of Australians have regrets with regards to their finances that could have been avoided with access to better financial education. You might ask what those regrets are. Well, the top 3 are things like not saving, not investing, not budgeting. But the fourth most common one was actually not learning more about finances and money. And because it's overwhelming, people feel that they don't have sufficient skills to deal with or improve their finances, even if they could. So again, that's where the education piece comes in and is so important. Clearly, so then support with financial education can be a major positive intervention to improve financial skills and literacy, but it needs to be delivered in a way that's accessible and it's easy to digest. 68% of individuals that were surveyed in the US said that it was great to have financial wellbeing content, but it was just too hard to read. It was too time-consuming, too cumbersome. So they didn't access the information that was made available to them. And even if it's valuable, people will switch off if the channel's wrong or the timing's wrong or the delivery's wrong. So employees need financial wellbeing programs to be easy to understand, easy to access, delivered in bite-sized chunks, but having the opportunity to apply their learnings in their day-to-day life. And again, you know, it's like any learning trends. Learners in control of their learning and able to choose how and when they engage are going to be far more successful. It needs to be self-directed. And thirdly, you know, the last thing is it's time to turn theory into action. It's really is one thing to understand money concepts on paper, but it's quite another to put it into practice. So achieving financial wellness really does come with proactively setting up the systems and the habits and the processes to achieve the goals. But it doesn't have to be, you know, time-consuming or repetitive. It doesn't have to be a massive spreadsheet. It can be something as simple as a child's star chart type thing. You've done something and you've just made some tick boxes on a diary or a calendar on the fridge or something like that. It doesn't have to be bigger than Ben-Hur. Setting good habits to reach the goals. So you work through the process and make sure that an individual going through a financial wellbeing program is identifying the values that they need that'll enable them to craft goals and meaningful and authentic goals that can help them then put in those habits and sustain them. And it can be, you know, those setting good habits will help them achieve their longer term goals. The third thing is it's important to seek help and advice, and accessing any one-to-one financial advice can be daunting, as I said a moment ago. And employers can help by partnering with a credible financial services provider to provide the solution that works for their organisation. That is usually, you know, help that enables an individual taking part in a program to really understand how they can access help. That could be personal financial advice, so comprehensive advice, or it could be general advice. So what's the win-win? Well, it's a win-win for both employees and employers. So for employees, you're going to see them achieve greater financial knowledge and skills. You're going to see them reduce their financial stress. There's going to be greater productivity and engagement at work. Remembering back to some of those figures I showed you a few moments ago. There's certainly going to be improved financial outcomes and a sense of security. And there's also going to be that ability to seek help or advice, because now they know where to get it from, whether that's looking at finding a particular website that might be able to help them. There's lots of information on the internet. There's lots of places. It doesn't always require you know, to go through to full financial advice at all. What we do see, though, is that to underline the effects that financial literacy and good habits can have, I've just put up there on the screen some results from a survey that Insignia did a couple of years ago. It was 2020. It was a very large survey, one of the biggest of its kind at the time, and it covered 11,000 Australians who had received financial advice from one of the associated entities under Insignia Financial. Now, while these individuals were definitely advised, they had their personal advisor. What does occur with financial advice is a lot of education and a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills are developed in the individual. So what you can see there is that 90% of them had greater confidence in making financial decisions. 95% of them had greater peace of mind financially, and 68% saw improvements in their financial security. And so that's the same sort of thing that flows through from people that are taking part in a financial wellbeing program. But if the employer is investing in a program, there needs to be a win-win for an employer. So the key outcomes that we solved for from the start were, how do we work at improving talent attraction and retention? That's the sorts of things you're going to see out of a financial wellbeing program. A program is part of the wider, broader employee wellbeing program. There'll be increased employee loyalty, certainly reduced costs and turnover, presenteeism and absenteeism. You'll see an improved culture, And there'll be a reduction in that employee stress and burnout, where that financial stress has been the underlying element. So 88% are more likely to be productive, 82% are more likely to be satisfied in their current job, and 87% are more likely to be feel engaged. And that's Australian figures from a survey done last year. So those are really great outcomes for an employer. So helping employees be their best self outside of work so that they can bring their best self to work. So as employers, employers can help in removing and managing some of the personal stresses. They can do that by investing in a financial wellness program so that those individual staff employees can proactively manage their finances, set goals, build the right knowledge and habits, and know where to go for help. It's important when you're thinking about choosing a program, and there are different options out there, think about the needs of your employees and the solutions that affect those needs and concerns. The program content needs to be delivered in a manner that makes it really easy to understand and implement so that people are encouraged to access the program and take action. One thing I'd say is make sure your people are aware of what's available to them, communicate. As I said at the start, I work with a lot of employers, and often they have some great employee benefits available, and they go, well, why aren't people taking them up? And it's because people, they're perhaps not being communicated. It sounds like a really simple thing, but 1 in 3 employees don't feel they have clarity about the benefits that are available to them. And it's actually even higher for younger workers and for women. So where there's targeted activities and communications and the HR teams involved, I've found a much greater take up and of employee benefits of whatever nature they are. And the third thing is it's so important to measure meaningful outcomes, benchmark it, and track it against time. So the key thing is to remember that financially well employees are happy, healthy, productive employees, and helping them build the skills to take control of their finances is something that an employer can find really useful for both the employer and the employee. So I'll stop sharing my screen there, and I'll even put my picture of me back up again. There you go, Leanne.
That's great. One of the things that has actually come to mind, and I did want to pick your brain on this, is, Medicare's come out now because they're talking about, the mental health of their employees, and they're going to be going down to like the 4-day work week, and everyone's saying, oh, it's going to be costing the company a bomb. Would you say that would also lead into that fight? Obviously, I think, 4-day work week on a 4-day wage would be great for mental health, but do you think that would work alone? Or do you think obviously businesses still need to bring in a strategy so that, people realize what they're getting?
Yeah, I think, look, the 4-day week and the, whether it's paid at 4-day week or paid at 4/8, yes, it does give that extra time. But what we're talking about when we're talking about the importance of financial well-being is really having the skills and the knowledge to actually make those decisions for yourself. Establish your values, establish your goals. So you still need those as part of it. I think it's a contributor, the shorter working days, but there's still a need for it. I've spoken at a number of HR conferences during the course of this year, or talked to a lot of HR people, and without fail, they've all been saying, what can we do to support our people? We're really worried about our people. We need to do something. Yes, we all are well aware of the current cost of living and the inflation and things like that, but they're actually also saying, the comment I made about super funds no longer providing the necessarily being the go-to provider of education, because the super plan, the individuals within an organisation no longer necessarily belong to the same super plan. They're making the comment that is seeing people lose the ability with skills. And I was speaking to an employer the other day who was, highly paid workforce, a lot of benefits, but they're saying, if these people can't afford to walk away from this job because they don't know how they could survive.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about with employees, what would be, and then being proactive, what do you think would be the first point that people would make to their employees about being proactive with their financial security?
So, sorry, did you say employers or employees?
Employees. So, because with the employees, a lot of them come in and they go, okay, especially when we're talking about the lower level, this is my hourly rate and this is what I'm stuck within. And a lot of people, they talk about living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. So when they've got those employees, what would be the first, do you think, proactive point?
I think the first proactive thing. So when I'm working with employees, these programs are being delivered very much as an employee benefit that is made available to all the staff. Now, you don't get 100% uptake in a voluntary program, you never do, but it does come back to how it's presented and in terms of what the outcomes might be. Now, some of it can be, it might be that budgeting is something that's needed. It might be all sorts of different types of education in there can assist with that. It might be maximising your superannuation to the extent that you can. It just is a broad understanding across the board. But it comes back to habits. Sometimes those habits can make a big change.
I noticed, when coming back off, before I decided to join the Business Women Australia world, obviously I'd come off being a full-time mum. And one of the things that I was like, was, because I turned to my husband, I said, I actually want to be financially independent from you. And he just went, what? And I was like, well, if something happens, because, we know women over 55, and I'm not far off my 50s now, in the higher bracket for homelessness, because, they don't have that education with their financial security.
And there's been other aspects that come into play with that too, absolutely. But certainly, the education and skills and knowledge. I mean, if you think back to a previous generation, and look, I used to work in the trustee industry, so I used to deal with individuals that, or women in particular, the older women who their husband had passed away. Mm-hmm. It happened more than I like to see it happen. Those women had no idea of how to pay a bill, how to do all of those things, because for their life in that generation, it had all been done for them. And so that's the same sort of principle.
We've got a question here from Erin. Hold on, show chat.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
You can hear me? Great. Thank you. Sorry, I joined halfway through. So I've just popped my question in there for you. We have a very sort of young workforce, and the day-to-day cost of living pressure is always a common discussion around the lunchroom. Where could we start in a sort of easy starting point to help them on their journey to financial management?
Yeah, it comes back to starting right at the beginning and unpacking what they think about money right now, and what their biases are, what some of those aspects of why they make the decisions they make about money now. That environment too, that under 25 is one where it's very much the oh well, I'll have it now. There's and whereas in the past there might have been a bit of more delayed gratification, you saved for an item. So some of it is unpacking that and getting them to really think about why they make those sorts of decisions. Then you can move into budgeting. You can start talking about some of the things and the goals that they might want to develop, their values. So it's starting right back at those basics. It sounds a little bit airy-fairy at the start, but that's what you need. You need to start with that so that they can understand.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
What zero-base is for them.
I find that, like, obviously, I've had more years of experience, so I know how to manage it myself. But people will come to me and ask for personal advice on things, and I'm like, well, actually, this is something we really need to, help them with. And even if we could, somehow get a couple of sessions, like a lunchtime session, where, maybe a 3-part series of, where to start, what tools to use and how to make it, fun, even, because everyone loves they love their apps, and anything technology based, I think, will help.
So I guess probably that's a good segue into our program that we offer to employers. Is made up of a number of elements, and it really does depend on what an employer is wanting to achieve. What are the issues in that particular environment, and let's be honest, at the end of the day, their budget as well. So it certainly starts and ends with a survey. It has people like me working closely with the HR teams to really make sure that the messaging is pushed out, that the messaging conveys what the program is going to be about and why you should engage, why an individual should be part of it. We then have a series of webinars, so there's or seminars, depending on that, covering things like exploring those values, those beliefs, all of the things I've just talked about, talking about, I hate to say there is a session on superannuation, but not superannuation in its talking about products, but superannuation, talking about what it is and what you need to know about it, how you can maximise it, talking about investing so that people can start to understand all the assets and asset classes and the things that they need to consider there, risk return, talking about protecting yourself, so things like insurance. But it starts at the beginning with unpacking those beliefs and things. We also have the ability, or we do, provide small videos that can go on a business's intranet. Can 30, 90 seconds, can unpack some information. Access to financial coaches for general advice discussions. So if people want to have that, they can have that discussion. And then we can provide access to the wealth report for a year as well. And that is we'll call it it's an online, it's a website that it's an online web-based journey. Individual can go in, log in, complete all their information, and it produces a report for them that identifies the areas that they need to consider. Perhaps identifies also, they put in a residential address, talk about how people living in similar areas to them, where they are at different parts of their journey. So really lots of things that are available, and it's a case of sitting down and having a chat to an employer.
Yep, sounds good. I'll definitely reach out to you for that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't put this QR code up. I didn't want today to be a sales pitch as such. I wanted to explore some conversations. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
I was going to say, with that QR code, we can actually send it out to everyone after the webinar as well, which will be really great.
Yeah. So that's just the ability to just book a time to have a meeting with me, and if you want to, and explore what you need. Actually,
Kathryn, did you have a link that you can put in the chat at all?
Not that I can get to easily right now while you're asking me to
That's
multitask.
all right.
No.
If you can email it to me, we can obviously email it out to everybody as well.
Yeah.
And thank Kathryn, you would have seen the changeover with the management styles, in the last, 20 years with this financial health. How does the focus different from today to what it was 20 years ago? Because, I remember when I started working, it was you get in there, you work.
Yeah.
Your money was your job. That's it. What kind of change have you found with that?
I think from my personal perspective, what I've seen is, well, look, I've been lucky enough to work in financial services for 20 odd years. But what I've seen is, I think what we've seen particularly in the last few years has been that real need. Employers are looking for, they've got retention, they've got recruitment issues particularly. They're looking at what can they offer that's a differentiator that brings people into the business. So that's one aspect of it. The second part is, yes, there are a number that are saying, mental health issues are an issue. They're saying that financial stress is a contributor to those mental health issues. So we're not saying that it's all. So they're looking for ways that they can address it and that they can fix it. And yeah, that just, I guess what I've seen is a greater desire to support their employees so that they have that greater sense of belonging, that greater sense of productivity, engagement, and all of those sorts of things.
And do you think they've also got to focus with the retention, because the high turnover rates, people are having more options to leave now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's talent attraction as well. So we're only talking financial well-being as part of an employee benefits program, an employee well-being program, but it's a part that the current environment that we're living in has made more a greater focus on. And you don't turn the television on or open the hear on the radio or open a newspaper, if you do that, or read online. You're seeing financial well-being all the time at the moment as a concern across the board.
I'm going to throw it down to Kathryn Birchall, if you've got anything that you'd like to ask or input. She might be just listening in.
Yeah.
Or Rani, did you have anything to add to the conversation? I think we've got two people listening. That's okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to close the recording and say thank you for everyone for coming. And thank you, Kathryn Dixon. So if anybody does have any questions, please reach out to Kathryn Dixon at Insignia Financial. We will be sending out your information to everyone who's registered today. And otherwise, a great place to find you is LinkedIn.
If someone's just found me. So thank you. Thank you all for joining today.
Thanks very much.
Have a great rest of the day. See ya. Bye.
Bye.